Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. It's Alan Schimmel, and we've got a lot to go over today. We're going to be talking about a new survey on DevOps. Is it working? Where does your remote worker live? Let's hope it's not Pyongyang. And then lastly, is a AI PC in your future? Plus a bonus. What the heck is a Tech Field Day anyway? All of that and more here on Techstrong Gang. Hey everyone, welcome back here. It's Tuesday, as I said in the opening. We've got a new gang member actually to introduce you to today. He is one of our brethren coming over from the Futurum gang. Actually, he is prior to Techstrong, the Tech Field Day and Gestalt IT team was the latest addition to the Futurum group, and he is the leader of Tech Field Day and IT Gestalt, Stephen Foskett. Hey, Stephen, welcome to Techstrong Gang.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me in.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure, actually. So, Stephen, we're going to talk about what exactly a Tech Field Day is a little later. But you know what? Give people a little bit of the Stephen Foskett journey, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So, years ago, I was trapped in Alaska and I was attacked by a polar bear. No, that's not my journey at all. I was an IT nerd, and then I started writing about IT nerd stuff, and got into this backwards through being writing contributed articles and so on. Never been really an analyst or a press person by trade, but I've sort of found myself in that position. So about 15 years ago, I started Gestalt IT and Tech Field Day as a way for independent, not quite analysts, not quite press people like me to get connected with companies. And still doing it today. As you mentioned, we decided to join Futurum in December, shortly before y'all did. And I think that this is going to be the start of a beautiful friendship, as the guy says in the movie.
Absolutely, Louis. Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome and thank you. We're
welcome, Stephen.
Looking forward to having you on here often. And we should also mention a lot of the Gestalt IT and Tech Field Day podcast and video broadcast will be broadcast. Actually, we broadcast the first one last week. We were really happy with that. And you'll be able to catch all of the Tech Field Day and Gestalt IT podcast and content right here on Techstrong TV. So that's a great thing. Joining Stephen and I today, though, is my compadre high up in the Rocky Mountains, Mitch Ashley, our CTO and principal analyst. Hey, Mitchell, welcome back. Hope all's good.
It's all good. It's all good. And I want to do a shout out to Stephen and thank him for having us on his events already and participating in Tech Field Day and some podcast things. So it's a lot of fun to do some different things. So thanks, Stephen.
Absolutely. We'll be talking about that when we talk about what is a Tech Field Day. Mitchell and I will be making our debut at an upcoming Tech Field Day. We're very excited later this month, but more about that in a minute. Guys, let's jump into the first block here today, though. You know, I had a chance to catch up with Harness Field CTO. Actually, I caught up to him on Techstrong TV, but we met in person at RSA as well. Harness has some new research out. It was commissioned, I think it was the Wakefield Group or someone actually did the research. But it showed, not all's perfect in the world of CI/CD and deploying software almost, in an automated manner. Maybe as much as half of the deployments are failing. The rollbacks are often manual. One may say it's far from an well-oiled machine there, and it calls into question the whole premise of DevOps, which is, do more, faster, better. Now, I'll just start us off by saying this is coming from a CI/CD vendor who wants you to use their products. So, of course, they're saying, it could be better if you maybe perhaps use their product. But the fact of the matter is, look, this is complex stuff we're talking about, right? And there are bugs and kinks to be worked out. Mitch, you have a career full of dealing with this kind of stuff. What do you think?
Well, software has a very long tail, right? Whether it's the technology we use or the techniques that we use, all of that. I mean, there's, how often do we talk about mainframes and COBOL and all that kind of stuff that I started my career on long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. So I think it's really easy to concentrate on the shiny new stuff and the things that are still kind of in that sort of the hype cycle, if you will, even if it's past, and kind of this maybe is the trough of disillusionment in some ways. But really, you don't turn organizations onto a new way of doing things. We still have groups that don't do Agile yet. So it's not like the sky is falling. I think the real question is, what can we do to make adopting DevOps easier by organizations who are not yet doing that? And I think part of this survey was maybe some self-interest here, but I believe in the premise too, which is think about a platform approach rather than 20 different tools to do all your tool chain to build your DevOps pipelines on. You end up in the tool business supporting that. So that's a lot of the premise there. But there's some good data here. We don't release every day into production. Matter of fact, we may only do it monthly or quarterly or twice a year. We do it manually because it's a challenge to get to the point where you can do things automatedly.
Stephen, one of the tech field day that Mitchell and I are going to be involved in is on app dev. I'm wondering if anything you're hearing from audience, vendors, other participants maybe sheds any light on the subject, right? Is this thing working as well as expected? Where are we going?
Yeah, I would say that it is not working as well as we expected, but I guess we should have expected that, right? As Mitch says, it's really hard to get teams to change and adapt. I came at this from the IT ops side myself. I was one of those guys freezing in the data center, trying to keep this stuff up and running. And before DevOps, I was working at a big international bank trying to build out an on-demand infrastructure so that the investment bankers could roll out applications incredibly quickly. That project was a complete and total disaster, as you can imagine, because there was no tooling, no infrastructure, no ability for the developers to actually request infrastructure, and no ability for them to actually do anything with the infrastructure that they requested. I think that we've actually moved the ball forward on that regard incredibly far. For me, when I look at Kubernetes, I think of Kubernetes as not a specific management framework for containers. I look at it as a mindset. As an operations guy, I look at it as a shared understanding of infrastructure, a shared vocabulary for how to describe infrastructure, and a way then to formulate that, maybe as a series of YAML commands that you can then roll out. Yes, it also has functional aspects that allows us to roll things out. But that being said, developers need so much more information about the environment in order to roll something out successfully, in order to put new applications into production. Mitch and I, we talked about that somewhat last week on the Gestalt IT Rundown, and we talked about this on an episode of the Tech Field Day podcast that's actually going to be airing here soon. And frankly, I'm not sure that DevOps is going to end up being the answer to this question. I think that we have a lot more work to do in the areas of platform engineering to make these things more repeatable. You look at this survey, why aren't they deploying code more efficiently and quicker? I think a lot of it has to do with things that aren't code.
Boy, if I can pick up on that, Stephen, I was just thinking about, even recently within, it isn't 10 years ago that I had this experience, convincing people that it's okay to deploy quicker because we can fail faster and update things in production if we do have an issue. That's antithetical to saving my job for many folks, right? I'm not comfortable with taking that risk, right? I'm not putting my career on the line. So it can't be one developer's challenge or a team's challenge. You have to set up the environment where you can do that, but that you can, fail fast or recover when you do have failure. So spot on your comment. Is it's not just about the technology stack. It's the infrastructure, it's the methodology, it's the reward structure and support structure for people, right? You can have a greatest tech stack and just say, yeah, and if you screw it up, you're fired. Okay, well, they're not going to use it.
You know, Mitch, talking about failing fast, I think that was one of the key findings in this survey, is that the rollbacks, you know, this isn't Walmart putting up a yellow happy smile for a price rollback. Rolling back to the previous version, in most instances, is not automated. It's manual, and it takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of gotchas there. But in talking to Nick at Harness, you know, the people behind the survey, I'll tell you, they blame a lot of this on the whole shift left. Let's put everything on the developer's plate. And look, we've seen this with DevSecOps. We've seen it with testing. And now we're seeing it with the deployment. You know, at some level, you ask yourself if the developers are the highest paid, you know, they're the alpha predator, they're the highest paid person on the tree. Yeah, you want to get your money's worth, but what do developers like to do? Develop. What do coders do? They code. Putting testing, deployment, security, and a host of other, no pun intended, and a host of other things on their plate gets them away from what they do best, which is coding. And, you know, that was somehow lost. I mean, part of the DevOps thing, right? Stephen, you were the IT ops guy, was, hey, you were now working in a cross-functional team. We're all working together, whether you call it a DevOps engineer, which I never was a big fan of, or a platform engineer or whatever. You're part of this cross-functional team that is responsible to get code from, you know, idea to deployment and beyond. And just saying, hey, the developer's going to do that because we're going to automate the heck out of it and just shift left. I think that's where we've run off the road a little bit. We got to shift everywhere. I'm sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I'm hearing a lot of sort of shift right pushback coming out of the industry as well, where people are saying, wait a second, maybe it doesn't make sense to shift everything to the left. You know, maybe we need to think about shifting some of the stuff to the right. But again, it all comes down to me to building an effective cross-platform or cross-functional team and cross-functional platform, to building standard platforms. That's why I really love this idea of platform engineering. It's nothing new. You know, again, we talked about this. In fact, the episode of the Tech Field Day podcast that we recorded, we talk about this in great detail because it's about standardizing the platforms, standardizing the functions. You can't expect developers to be experts on IT security. You can't expect them to be experts on networking. You can't expect them to be experts on storage. The answer to that is to build appropriate infrastructure, appropriately secured environments, and then let them deploy. But another aspect of this that I'm curious about is the testing aspect and the production aspect. Because again, if we look at this survey, 2/3 said that they need to wait a week to completely test code. That's not on me, the ops guy. That's not on the platform engineers. That's on testing methodology and test plans. And I know that there's a huge aspect of that has to get in as well. Because the last thing you want to do, like to your point, the last thing you want to do is roll out a new version of the app and have it fail.
Yeah, no, that's just, I mean, the penalties involved there are just too much.
You know, Alan, if shift left was the answer, I would have shifted left to the project managers why we kept failing meeting our dates for every project. You know, it's sort of, in a way, it doesn't make sense. It's back to the original sort of overblown mantra of we only need developers anymore. We don't need all these other people in ops and security and all that crap, right? We knew at the time that's BS. That's not going to be the case. Just like pushing it all to the developer doesn't make sense. I think a couple things. One is you have to recognize, I've managed a lot of developers over my career. They're skilled at different things. There are a few people who really understand kind of systemically the whole stack that you're running on. Operating system, Kubernetes, whatever it is, container system, the architecture of the application, the cloud services, third-party products that you might be using. Those are unique individuals. You're not going to teach people, every person, to be that kind of person who can be the shift everywhere person, right? And handle all of those things. Just the same thing for security. Some people get it really quickly, and others, that's that's not my thing, right? I want to focus on other areas. So I think leadership's job is always to place people in the position where they can succeed best, and also where you have those needs wherever possible. So I think the mantra of trying to create more silos in DevOps is what we're guilty of. We don't need a shift left silo. We don't need a security or a testing silo or a whatever, right? It's a flow problem. That's really what's behind DevOps, is how we create flow across this process that we go through and the people that are involved in it. So it's really easy to get kind of, I'm stuck on where I am in the stack, or I'm stuck on where I am in the workflow, and this is my part of it, right? Well, you may do most of your work there, but it's part of a bigger system.
Absolutely. Let me just, though, not devil's advocate, but a little counterbalance, a little counterweight here. The idea behind shift left, of moving things further left in that left to right pipeline, is not necessarily in and of itself a bad idea, right? Mm-hmm. Testing for security vulnerabilities and bugs prior to deployment, to the left of the deployment point, is exponentially cheaper, more efficient, and a better way of doing security testing. No doubt about it. So many things that we move left, right? Testing further down the pipeline, right? As we've moved to cloud native architectures like Kubernetes and so forth, and we start doing, we're looking and testing code right in the IDE, right in the repository, right in Git, right? GitOps and so forth, deploying to direct from the repository. These things have enabled us. We talk about, they're only deploying once a month. Hey, Mitchell, when you and I did Still Secure, we were lucky if we did 2 a year. And we're
lucky if our customers could take 2 a year.
Yeah, and we were proud of it. Let's not forget where we've been in crapping on where we are. We've come a long way.
I think if I can jump in here, we're always guilty. I'm guilty too of kind of leaping at the simple answers, right? The simple answers have the developers do it. That's not really
what
Shift
DevOps.
Left was about. Shift Left is not even just to your point. It is about, but not only about, doing things earlier in the process, right? Building tests. Doing it earlier also improves code quality of your application as well as security. But I think thinking about it systemically, it's, well, how do you design in security, right? It's one thing to test for a really crappy design that doesn't have security very well baked into it, versus testing something was well thought out, or at least, partially well thought out. I like to say, you don't think about, let's put some bumpers on that car that just rolled off the assembly line. Or, well, let's add some, let's put some airbags in that. Yeah. That'll be one crappy car.
Next time we do it.
It's about the whole process and thinking about all the flow along the way. Where are things that really influence, not everywhere, but where are the things that really influence the outcome of security, code quality, speed, whatever it is. I mean, that's the DevOps way.
Absolutely.
And if I can suggest that the original intent, in my understanding at least, the original intent of shift left testing way back in 2001, when this was suggested, was not to shift expertise left, but to shift testing earlier and to have continuous testing as part of, continuous QA as part of the software development process. And you know what? I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense. I think maybe what we need to shift left is we need to shift some of the expertise left along with the people that have that expertise. And it's about bringing those people into the software development process earlier, instead of just saying, hey, developers, guess what? You got to be security experts now.
Say, testers.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to write your own test plan and you got to run that stuff all the time. How about we try to integrate that stuff earlier and integrate it continuously in the software development process? And I think that that's probably the ideal way to do CI/CD, if only we could achieve that.
Absolutely. We'll keep working at it, but we're probably not going to solve it today. We're going to take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We'll be back. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your remote workers are? All right, back here on Techstrong Gang with Stephen Foskett and Mitchell Ashley. So, guys, interesting article over on Security Boulevard. The North Koreans who are, they're kind of the Rube Goldbergs of the hacking world in some ways, right? They tend to do low tech, but nevertheless effective, right? And I've read stories where perhaps 25% of North Korea's GDP, this is before they sold arms to the Russians, 25% of North Korea's GDP come from hacking activities, ransomware and financial hacking. But a new wrinkle is that they're having their hackers masquerade and take remote jobs at American companies in IT, which is, it's fraught with all kinds of crazy possibilities there, but you got to give them credit. You got to give them credit. What do you guys think?
I'm going to jump in and say I think North Korea is the Rodney Dangerfield of hacking. Right? Just don't get no respect. Uh-huh. So, my reaction to this article was duh. Yeah, of course they are. And this isn't new. This didn't happen at the release of this article. How long has espionage and counterintelligence and all of those things been happening in that world, but also in our hacking world? That's been going on for a long time. And we've known China does that as well. So it's not a new thing. It's maybe just, by the way, it's happening in Korea, North Korea. In this case, the article, which is definitely check it out. It's really interesting. There's a laptop farm in, I think it was Nevada, if I remember right, where these people were connecting into to look like they're working from, U.S. Home soil or something close to that. This is a sock puppet workforce, just like we have sock puppet email accounts, right? It's people that are masquerading to be something that they aren't. We had this with the XC open source project, right, where someone infiltrated after a couple of years, low and slow. Those are the the advanced persistent threat kind of attacks. Now it's just people doing it.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it? That every time you come up with a new new mousetrap, somebody figures out a new way to spring it, don't they? And it's crazy because absolutely, this is related to COVID and work from home. Yeah. Absolutely, it's related to the corporate outsourcing trend overall. Absolutely, it's related to, the DevOps, mentality. And yet, of course, it's not caused by those things. I don't think it's fair to lay the blame for this on, if people just worked in offices anymore, then all of this would be solved. Would this not be possible in an office? Well, probably not, But that's not really the cause, right? I mean, the cause of this is that criminal's gonna criminal. That's kind of what they do. And then, as you say, that's their that's the North Koreans. They're kind of backed into a corner, a geopolitical corner, and they're going to figure out ways of exploiting that corner, whether it's crypto coin scams or whether it's this thing. But that being said, boy, this is crazy. Do you guys remember a few years ago when some people were posting on Hacker News how clever they were because they had outsourced their own job. Do you remember this whole story? Mm-hmm. I outsourced my job to India. All I do is submit outsourced stuff and work an hour a week and go to the meeting and show them, go to the code review and say, yep, I did all this stuff. And then there was another story on Hacker News, I remember, again, a few years ago. I outsourced my job and then I got more jobs so that I could have multiple outsourced jobs. And everybody was like, yeah, you're smart. You're so sharp. Yeah. Nice job, man. Well, guess what? Sometimes those clever ideas come home to roost.
Absolutely. I've got two thoughts on this. So first of all, Stephen, you're dead on. This to me is a COVID outsourced, remote work kind of thing. And that's not that it wasn't going on before, maybe in small scales, but this just made it too damn easy, right? This really lowered the bar into allowing this kind of thing to happen. Secondly, I remember receiving a call from a friend of mine's son who I've kind of mentored a little bit along the way. He's a DevOps guy, does CI/CD. And he called me and, Uncle Alan, I got a little situation. I said, what's the situation? He said, well, I had two jobs, two full-time jobs at the same time. And one of them found out. But they want me to stay. They just want me to quit my other job. And so this is how desperate employers are, right? That they catch someone doing this and they're like, it's okay, just get rid of that other job. Me, I would have fired his ass in a second. But anyway, I said, well, I would probably quit the other job, though, and just make sure, that this doesn't show up anywhere and move along. And he did.
Like the college professor that, catches a student cheating and says, well, that really shows initiative.
Right.
Just don't cheat.
Exactly. Don't cheat anymore, but say good things about me. So, this is the state of the job market today, right? People are desperate for people with skills, I guess. But then I started thinking to myself, how do we prevent this without doing like racial profiling or something like that? And I started thinking, well, in AI, I could come to a Zoom meeting and I could look like Steven, right? I could be sitting somewhere in North Korea, right? And who's going to know the difference? Who's going to know? How do you really stop this? I don't, because it's only going to get worse with AI.
Well, I really feel like the answer to this and so many things is people. Basically relationships, building relationships, building real relationships. Again, I don't want to blame anybody for this problem, but I will say, the reaction of some of the people to your story that I saw was basically, well, it's your own damn fault. How do you have a job and never talk to an employee? How do you have an employee who's working for you that never actually collaborates, that's just submitting code? That's not a good way to run a business, And I think that, like so many things when it comes to AI, and honestly, this is going to be something we're going to talk about, I think, in the next segment too. AI is a useful tool, but I think that people get enamored of their pretty little tools and they don't use their brain and they don't say, you know what, you just like work from anywhere is a useful tool. CI/CD is a useful tool, but people don't use their brain and they don't say, well, we got to just not play with this one tool. We got to do all the things. And that means, you got to have regular conversations with your employees. You've got to you build meaningful relationships between people. There's no way somebody can maintain multiple jobs or sock puppet jobs with a laptop farm in Arizona if you actually expect them to participate in the life of the company and the community of developers and so on, because it's just not possible. Even with deep fakes, I think it would be just too far of a stretch and too much of a hassle for that person to do it. It reminds me a lot of that old security idiom, right? You don't have to be completely secure. You just have to be more secure than your neighbor. Well, it's the same thing here, right? If you expect your employees to participate in the life of the company, Could they deepfake that? Yeah, they probably could, or at least they probably will be in a few more years. But it would be probably too much of a hassle for them to bother, and they'll move on to the next one, right? Mm-hmm. It's about building real relationships with people.
Yeah, I can't help but think of catfishing and stuff like this, right? You're going to build a real relationship with your buddy who you think is in Henderson, Nevada, and your buddy is not your buddy. And
oh my gosh, and that's the problem right there too, because if you've got a particularly high valuable target, I mean, let's get back to this story. So what do the North Koreans really want? They want money. That's what their country needs. And how are they going to get that? They're going to build backdoors and rootkits into financial institutions, into institutions that they can do ransomware. And by the way, I'm not trying to accuse them of anything that hasn't already been proven in law and in other cases, right? That's their goal. And this is going to be a high profile thing, right? They're going to go after these things just like spearfishers and catfishers go after people. And it's going to be awful hard to stop that.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer here is, but it is. And it's only going to get worse. And
I have a suggestion. For an answer. So just like everything I learned about predicting the future, I learned in Star Trek, the original Star Trek, right? In Asimov's original robot series, right, was Elijah Bailey was the detective that was partnered with a humanoid android.
Daniel.
Yes, Daniel. And they would go and solve these mysteries. I mean, it seems to me that's one of our cottage industries of just like, was this created with AI? Well, was like to your point earlier, Alan, was this created by Mitch, or is this Mitch and his network of, minions that are across the world? And when you detect something strange, like that's odd. Why Mitch was never equipped to do something like that, or that's a different strange behavior. That's when Elijah Bailey and the whatever AI robot come in and say, I think we have an HR issue.
Yeah. Well, in the absence of all of the possible, you have to look at impossible, Mr. Spock. But
there you go.
But go ahead, Steven.
I'll give you guys another science fiction reference that should probably scare us all, right? What do we need to do? Well, clearly to detect this kind of activity, we need to develop an AI bot that searches this stuff out, and then we need to have the AI bot not know that it's an AI bot, and suddenly we live in Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there we go.
Absolutely, that's right out of Blade. Actually, that was on. I think it's on Apple this month, on Apple TV. The new one, the new one. It's a little old now, but the second one,
the series, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the second one. Yeah. There's a new series coming out too.
Very
Blade Runner series,
but. Look, it's definitely something. This is why even our remote workers, I like to bring them here to the office a couple times a year, because I don't think anything takes the place of in-person, face-to-face.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because the thing is, it's all about people. It's all about relationships, ultimately.
Absolutely. Hey, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back to the gang. We're going to talk about AI PCs. But before we do, I really want to solve this. What the heck is a Tech Field Day? We're going to hear about it. Be back in a minute.
I'm Bonnie Schneider, sustainability contributor to the Techstrong Group. I'm excited to introduce you to a groundbreaking new initiative from Techstrong Research, the Sustainability Pulse Meter. The Pulse Meter offers valuable insights into how environmental responsibility factors into tech purchasing decisions for key players in the industry. Position your company as a leader in the industry and differentiate from your competitors with the Sustainability Pulse Meter, offered exclusively from Techstrong Research.
We've got Stephen Foskett, as I mentioned at the top of the show. It's his first appearance here on Techstrong Gang. I got two things for you, Steve. First of all, you're going to kick off our, the AI PC discussion. But before we do, and I don't mean to embarrass you or, it's hard to self-promote, but tell us, Tech Field Day, what's it about?
Well, it's all about the people, man, just like we were talking about a minute ago. So my belief is that the way to fix a lot of these problems is through people, right? Soylent Green. So what we need to do is we need to have real people engaging with companies, with content, et cetera. situations like this, I mean, the three of us, we kind of know each other. We're here live. Well, it's the same thing with Tech Field Day. So basically, for 15 years now, I've been inviting a crew of a dozen people like me who love to blah, blah about enterprise tech. I invite them to California. We have companies come and present to the group. They'll do a demo, they'll do a presentation, et cetera. And the goal, the job of those people around the table, we call them delegates because their job is to be part of the show. I like to say it's like The Price is Right. You call some people up from the audience, they guess how much the can of soup cost. Well, in this case, we call people like yourselves up from the audience, and your job is to say, well, hold on there, Google. What about this? What about that? Hold on there, Broadcom. I've got a question about this. What if you click over there in the demo, right? It elevates and transforms everything that happens. It's like a webinar that doesn't suck, as my colleague Tom Hollingsworth likes to say. And the truth is that it works, and we've been doing this for a long time. My favorite comments that I get on our YouTube channel, because we have literally tens of thousands of these Tech Field Day presentations out there. My favorite comment is, I feel like I was there. I feel like you're my people. I feel like you're asking the questions that I would have asked. And that's really the goal. And that's why I'm so excited to have Tech Field Day. I don't want this to sound like an ad, but I'm so excited to have it here on Techstrong, to have our App Dev Field Day next week is going to be on DevOps.com, to have your audience live Tech Field Day literally through you who are there, participating, joining the conversation. It is absolutely transformative. And the coolest thing that happens are the things that happen off camera, the relationships you build, the information you get, the realness of the whole thing. Just super excited to do it. And I'm so glad that you guys can join us for the first ever App Dev Field Day, because we couldn't do this until we were part of Futurum. I just didn't have the resource. I didn't have the knowledge. With Futurum, I've got you guys, I've got Paul Nashawati, I've got Sam Holshoe, I've got all these other great people who can help make these things happen in other topics. So we're doing App Dev. Heck, we're doing Mainframe Field Day. That's going to be insane. So I'm just super excited. Watch Techstrong TV. You'll see it.
This is on Wednesday and Thursday this week. So you can watch it on techstrong.tv. You'll see broadcast, you'll see live stream, and you'll also...
Wednesday, App Dev is Wednesday, Thursday next week.
Yeah, next week.
Thursday.
Yeah, the 29th and 30th.
29th and 30th. Yeah. Thank you. Okay,
Stephen,
right.
People wanted to get more information on the companies presenting and so forth. Is it techfieldday.com, or does each one have their own URL?
At techfieldday.com is sort of the catalog of all the events. I've since I started this, I've been keeping track of every presenter, every delegate, even the coverage that comes out of it. So if Mitch writes an article, we're going to share it on the Tech Field Day social media, and we'll catalog it on the website so that people can find it. The whole point is transparency. And again, that's another thing that I think is important. Well, I know is important to you guys, but it would have been a deal killer for me if it wasn't important to Futurum, is wide open, transparent access to information. No freaking paywalls and hiding things and, you're going to have to subscribe in order to learn. Nope. This stuff is wide open, and we try to promote these things and get these things out there as wide as possible.
Cool. All right. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about AI PCs coming to a desktop near you, maybe. Stephen, what do you think?
Well, I got to say, I am both skeptical and enthusiastic. So as a nerd, I am enthusiastic because I see the rapid rollout of NPUs and matrix acceleration instructions. So I host an AI podcast, and so I could get real deeper into this tech. I see these things coming, and as being exposed to the analysts at Futurum and all the companies that present and talk to them and so on, there's a lot coming down the pike. So we just had Apple introduce the M4 in the new iPad Pro, which I have. Of course, I'm a nerd. I had to get one, right? We've got, and Apple's got 5 generations of NPUs and acceleration instructions on their M series chips. We've got Qualcomm coming out with an absolutely smoking chip for Windows PCs. We've got NVIDIA, we've got AMD, we've got Intel. Everybody's putting these things in there. So to say that the AI PC is all hype or vaporware or something is absolutely not true, because every PC is going to come with this stuff in it, hardware-wise. But the skeptic in me says, that's great. What are you going to do with that hardware? And that's, I think, where the rubber's going to meet the road. Frankly, I think that's where Apple has an advantage because Apple owns the software too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mitch.
No, I was just going to kind of add to that. It's you hope that there is an equal, if not even more, progress on the developer tool side, the SDKs, the whatever tools are necessary to leverage all that stuff. That's how you really get the advantage out of it. And that's the stickiness of it, right? Like I can't be on something else because I love this Intel AI PC and all the great things that it does.
Well, Intel's been sharp. They have something called One API that is a extensible API for accessing these advanced instructions and accelerators. Assuming that One API is able to continue the traction that it's already building, I think that opens the door not just for Intel, but for everybody else. Because, of course, Intel is the challenger. They're not used to being the challenger, but they're actually doing things right as the challenger, which is to develop open, flexible APIs and ways of leveraging a variety of different hardware, as opposed to NVIDIA as the market leader. Their job, their primary job, their only job is lock you out. So they have to make you love CUDA, and they have to make everybody else not have CUDA, because then they maintain their dominance. And so that's really, to me, the perspective of what's going on here. But you're totally right. It all comes down to software and whether developers are going to leverage these things, whether they're actually going to deploy these things or not.
You know, so I've been in tech 30 plus years. My experience is like, you know how nature abhors a vacuum? Software abhors hardware capability not being utilized. And if you put it in the hardware, some software guy somewhere is going to do something that takes advantage of it. And so if you build it, they'll come. And I think that's what we're going to see here. Now, what's that going to mean? I mean, sky's the limit. We probably haven't even thought of the real, potential possibilities here. And I'll mention something else. You got M4 chips on iPads. The next gen iPhone, I don't even know. I don't know if that's going to be M4 or not in it, but I don't think AI, personal AI, if we could call it that, is not just going to be on your PC. I think it's going to be on every computing device you use.
And Google gave us a preview of that at I/O.
Yes, they did last week. We spoke about that. Yes, on yesterday's Techstrong Gang, right? It's AI everywhere with Google. It's the linchpin of their entire product line. So this is going to be a very. We sit here and look. The three of us are of an age, right? And we've all been around a bit. But man, it's an exciting time coming up, and this next 5 years, I can't wait to see what comes out of it. It's that exciting.
I thought Stephen was 25. You're older than that. Okay, all right.
Well, he started the tech field day 15 years ago. It would have been a tough gig at 10, but not impossible.
Kid. What can I say? I was precocious.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, these days.
Hey, for all we know, Steven's really in North Korea. Anyway, he's looking behind him for what's his name? The great leader.
So I think, though, that to your point, though, there's a good thing. So my background is in storage, and I have coined a law of storage. I've coined a couple of them, but one of them is that storage expands to fill all the available capacity. You'll always use all the available capacity. Mm-hmm. But on the AI hardware, there's actually a wrinkle here, and I'm going to use Apple as the example of that. So Apple has been shipping NPUs since the A11. Almost, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer than that. Apple has actually, they have these advanced matrix instructions, AMX, in their cores. They are walled off and private. They're secret. So far, nobody uses the NPU on Apple hardware for anything, including Apple. Well, asterisk, yeah, there's a couple of little things, but if you look at the use of that hardware, so far it's given Apple basically zero benefit. So I think there is a situation in which companies roll out hardware that doesn't get used, and I think Apple is the greatest example of that. Because frankly, if you don't allow your developers to know about it, you don't expose it, they won't use it, full stop.
Would be interesting, and who knows when we'll get to it, but what Apple's thoughts were behind doing that and why they haven't, opened it up.
And we're going to find out. So Apple's WWDC is coming up here on June 10th.
Yeah.
I am nothing is ever certain, but I am certain that Apple's keynote is going to say the word AI 500 times.
Oh, yeah.
Unless they come up with a stupid Apple name for it that's different than AI. But you know what I mean? I'm certain that there's going to be LLMs running locally on your iPhone and your iPad and your MacBook.
No doubt.
And I'm also certain that those things are going to run great on not just the latest generation stuff, but the previous generation and the generation before that. Because Apple has been quietly building this hardware support out there for a long time. That's going to give them a real advantage, assuming that this is what they do at WWDC, which I just don't see a situation that they don't do that.
No, to me, the question is, how close in bed are they with OpenAI, given the Microsoft connection to OpenAI? Right? Apple and Microsoft together, Steve Jobs, his turtleneck is folding over. Anyway, guys, we got to call it a wrap on this Techstrong Gang. Stephen, thank you for being here for the first time. We appreciate you. Hopefully we'll have you back really soon, and we'll see you next week out in Silicon Valley. Mitchell, you'll be on our next one, I assume. We'll talk soon. Hey, guys, Techstrong Gang isn't all we do here on Techstrong TV. Stay tuned because we have a full day of programming ahead of you. Check it out then. But until Thursday, we'll be back with a fresh Techstrong Gang. This is Alan Schimmel. We're out of here.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.